So, we're finally going over that long-awaited video that's going to talk about the armor rules for the Armor Is Worn portions. That includes the Deed, so one-on-one, Squire and Knight, and the Armor Is Worn melee, or mixed troop melee if you prefer, that's going to take place here for Armored Forces Weekend. So, first things first, we need to go over the idea of Armor Is Worn, which is every bit of historical armor counts for something. So, for example, I'll stand here. We've got, he is not wearing any padding. He has just his arming jacket on underneath, which means that if he gets a hit here, be it one-handed, two-handed, whatever, this will be an incapacitation, because under here is just skin. Okay? Versus Jarrett, when we have the lightly armored guy come up, you will see that he is wearing a gambeson like this, which is, this is acceptable. A gambeson will get you protection against one-handed cuts. However, two-handed cuts or thrusts will still go through. Okay? So most people should be equipped with these because we all wear the AP jacket or AP light. So, however, protective gear such as the padding here on Randy's trousers or the lightly armored portion here, that all counts as, because it's not historical or it's just clothing, that doesn't count for any protection whatsoever. Now, on to mail, which both of these gentlemen are wearing. Mail shall make you immune to all cuts, so be they one-handed or two-handed, and it makes you immune to one-handed thrusts, so we're not going to be able to do that and get through mail. Okay? Now, if you get it in and then couch it and drive, that's okay. Stand here once you use your new lance rest for sure, so we'll probably see a bit of that. But otherwise, we'll want two hands on with a little bit of drive behind it. The same would apply if you were using a sword. So one-handed or two-handed sword, if you get it in, you will need to either hubschmut, put two hands onto the grip and enforce it, or lock it against yourself via couching or what have you to get through. This may sound like it's relatively complicated to judge, but it's not. When you're in your mail, it's basically, if you can't feel it at all, it's not really couched enough. In regards to the lightly armored stuff, you can totally do a one-hand thruster, just poke it and you're good. This extends to the feet, but we're gonna try and avoid attacking the feet unless it's gentle with the tip of the sword or the spear. So next is plate, which both of these gentlemen are wearing, and there's two types of plate to keep in mind. So we've got solid plate, which both of these guys are wearing, and then we have perf plate of two different kinds. So the perf plate that Randy is wearing, and that is also present here in the eye slit of the sallet, that counts as just protective gear, because the only reason that's there is so that he can wear a kettle helmet and not get his eyes smashed. Stan's visor, on the other hand, which is a perforated but intentionally perforated visor, this does not count as open face. This is meant to be protected. So that is open face, this is not. And this includes all other helmets with that style. So, the rest of the plate, and probably back up, the rest of plate is only going to be countered with an axe or a hammer blow. So, for example, if I strike Stan here, here, on the arm, on the head, I'm good. Versus if I stabbed him in the face, I could hit him with whatever. But if I want to get through this helmet, I will need to use this. Now, in regards to the axe striking the mail, it would go right through. In regards to the axe striking padding, you shouldn't be swinging an axe at a guy that lightly armored. Just poke him instead. Okay? But we'll come back to that for the disallowed techniques. Now, that's the basics. So to go over it again. Padding, you're immune to one-handed cuts. Mail, you're immune to all cuts and one-handed thrusts. Plate, you're immune to everything except an axe. So, for a little bit of clarification as to the different kind of roles, we've got Stan, the most armored. We probably won't see a ton of them out on the field, but I hope that some will come out, which they'll have weak points. You just have to go for those weak points. So for example, we've got the crotch here. Everyone's going to go for the crotch. We've got the insides of the arms. You can couch, of course, in the armpit or into the top of the mail. His throat is well armored, so we're not going to worry about that, versus his is not. He just has a gorget on. And we've got, of course, the backs of the legs, which we've seen in past melees. Light guys who are really well equipped come up and do that. If you feel pressure there and you're wearing inclusives or whatever, you're gone. For Randy, however, of course, the open face is a very big target. inside of the hands, the mail anywhere you can couch. His entire back is mail because he's just wearing a breastplate, so this would all be open target. And of course the tops of his legs, because that's just modern protective gear and not actual historical padding, it'll go through. If you do have padded trosses that are of adequate thickness, which we'll inspect day of, that could be different for cuts at least. But with those two aside, let's look at a lightly armored guy. Shazam! Now, I have a lightly armored guy here, and this is what I'm expecting most of our participants to look like. So, he's got his standard Velocifecting kit on, so heavies, he's got rigid elbow. Basically, if you're not wearing historical plate, then any area not covered by that needs to be covered by what is acceptable to participate in a HEMA tournament. So, again, rigid elbow. He doesn't have his rigid knee on right now, shame, but he would have it on and protect his shins, adequate padding, gorget on both of these guys, of course, and he's got back of the head protection as well. Now, all of the protective gear just counts as flesh. So if you get him on the hands, it's as if you hit the hands like mine. Get him on the shins, same thing. Pants, same as those. Gambison, different. So he's essentially wearing just a padded jack and then hosen. Now the elephant in the room, the one you might be wondering about, is why is he wearing this brightly colored hood? The reason being that a lot of people are going to be doing different levels of armor. So, for example, you might have someone like Randy who, because he's either not wearing a helmet that fight, it's hot, and if he decides he doesn't want to wear a heavy helmet anymore, might go back to his fencing mask. We had this happen at a melee past, and the guy was wearing full armor, and somebody, who shall not be named, didn't recognize that he had switched helmets because it was kind of silvery, and I hit him with an axe. I mean, someone hit him with an axe. So, we need to make sure that there is a way that you will never mistake a fencing mask for a steel helmet, and so that's what this colored hood is for. We have a couple colored hoods here, but if one, you want to represent your school colors, or two, you just feel like having a craft project, making just a light hood that goes over the cover of this would be excellent, because there's no way you're going to mistake that for a helmet, and if you do, you're a dick. Now, with all that aside, let's start talking about the weapons, and we have quite a few weapons here. So, for this, and disallowed techniques as well. So now for disallowed techniques and other things to take in mind. So, for one, if we have an instance where, for example, an armored guy is fighting against a lightly armored guy, there is no reason for him to strike with the axe or the hammerhead. It's just don't do it. We don't want to kill anybody. So instead, a better option for this guy is to run away. But if he wanted to thrust at him, that's just fine. That thrust will go through anything he's wearing except for the plate. Mm-hmm. Now, if there's super close range and he used the hammer end or something like that to strike into the plate, that'd be different. But in general, that will not be happening because of the grappling rule. So at the event that we all just went to, Long Point, we had the Peasant Rebellion. Some of you were there for that. I was there for that. Great times. Where we had the peasants overrunning and grappling the knights to the ground. We are disallowing this. You are only allowed to grapple an equal armor level. So if you are in light kit, you can only grapple other light kit guys. If you're middle like Randy is, you can only grapple middle like Randy is. If you are in full plate, grapple full plate people as much as you want. Other acceptable things you could do though is at the bottom of the axes. Now we don't have them on yet, but we do have some nice little spikes that we'll put on the bottom of these. And this also applies to pommels. If he wished to bop him in the face or some other area with the back, that serves exactly the same as a spear. That's just fine. Likewise, if you have the back of the haft, that serves the same as a pommel. So do perf plate or a mask, that's just fine. So that's pretty much all the close quarter. Also, some people do have daggers on them. For a dagger to go through just cloth, just one hand. If you want to get through mail, you have to put your second hand on there and drive in. So you won't be able to go dun dun dun. Right? None of that nonsense. If you get the dagger into a weak place like this, you're good. Same as the thrust. So, with all that aside, let's start talking about the gear and equipment specifically so that hopefully you guys can get some together. I have a decent amount of loaner stuff, but hopefully you guys start, the idea of this is to get people in armor anyway, so some things you can look for. So firstly, these axe heads will take a while to get in, so don't worry about those. Purple Heart axe heads will allow them, but we're going to make sure that only people who have worked with axes before in melees are allowed to use them. Which comes to another disallowed technique, actually, which is when it comes to using an axe, you cannot do this. There will be no taking one, just like with the Mordschlag at long point. If both hands are down below the middle point of the axe, you're not allowed to strike with it. One hand must always be kind of in the middle or something along those lines. So you can somewhat choke up, but that's about the most you're going to get. For spears, you're totally allowed to flung thrust and do all that stuff. Now, a flung thrust will not get through mail. You will need to do a structured thrust. It'll get the unarmored portions, though. Striking with the haft is not allowed. Same with this, unless you're fighting another armored guy and you're going for a grappling action, that's okay. But Stan and I will talk more about that day of. But striking with the haft, so he's not armored, that kind of stuff, no. This is okay. You'll be nicer with it, though, of course. Cutting with the spear, if it's a spearhead like this, I'll let you cut with it, but it only counts to the face. Just like a schnipp. So, now let's actually get back into the equipment. So, firstly, the easiest thing for you guys to get is, of course, your Blossfectin gear. You got your Gambeson, you've got your heavies and stuff like that. This will keep you safe. You'll just be a lightly armored guy. And I expect there to be a lot of lightly armored guys. So what you should invest into is pole arms. There's the, let me grab one. There's the Purple Heart spears. And this will be synthetic only. There will be no steel in the melees or the one-on-ones, just for sake of, when it comes to armor at least, just for sake of safety and for sake of your equipment. Because a fetter trying to half sword into this will get snapped, and that's all kinds of dangerous. So no steel spearheads either. So these guys work great. You can just buy the spearheads by themselves. If you've got some stabs laying around, you can affix this no problem. I do not require a butt spike. It's cool if you want to have it on, but I do not require it. These guys from Cold Steel, pretty widely available. The thing to remember about these, though, is that they flex a lot. So I'm driving in, and he can probably feel it, but after a little bit, that's going to flex, and it's hard for him to tell. So if you're using one of these, it's probably best to be using it against a lightly armored guy, because he'll feel that, okay? Now, there will be a marshal walking around, and it'll probably be me. There will be a marshal taking care of the melee and make sure that people aren't, they're acknowledging hits, they're seeing hits, because the melee at least is going to be self-judged. You feel a hit, you go, okay, cool, and you withdraw from the field. So, invest into pole arms is what is the long and short of it. Other allowed weapons are, synthetics like the Purple Heart Penties, the Rawlings. Randy has one on his hip. Those Rawling swords are completely okay. Two-handed Rawling swords are just fine. I don't want anything heavier than that. I mean, Black Fencer would also be okay, but I don't want to see any of the Cold Steel stuff. You'll need to transition from Bloss to harness and back, so nothing too heavy that you wouldn't whack somebody with. Cold Steel daggers are just fine. Flexible, no, we're not going to worry about flexible. No metal, right? We got enough metal as it is. Synthetic and steel bucklers are both cool, because there will be no striking with the buckler. So you can use a synthetic buckler, you can use a steel buckler, I don't really mind. I'm not forgetting any weapons, I think I'm good. Okay, so other things we can invest in. Oh, one more disallowed thing. I will allow shields, but they will not be Viking shields. Sorry, warriors. The only shields that I will accept are pervases, the jousting shields, what's the name of those?
Crunch.
Crunch, thank you. And heater shields, right? So if you wanna get a shield and paint it, that's completely okay. But I don't want these. Big bucklers are okay. So the bigger ones that no one likes to use, those are fine, but I don't want these. But I also hopefully don't want to see a ton of shields anyway, because we've got pole arms and armor. So let's talk about armor that you can invest into. So you can invest into these kinds of breastplates. They're only like $100 each off Cult of Athena. I think Lord of Battles made these, and they work just fine. You throw them over a Gambeson and boom, you've already got a lot more protection than you would think. Randy here is pretty much decked out in a Cult of Athena armor set. So this mail is only about 200?
$275.
Cool, 275 for the largest. I have a smaller shirt.
For the second largest.
Second largest. I have a smaller shirt, but it's really not that expensive for a male shirt, which fits right over a Gambeson or a JF jacket. You'd be just fine. These, even though they're a little oversized, you might have to modify them some. Again, off Cult of Athena. These gauntlets off Cult of Athena. They also have some other models.
These were the last ones.
Those are the last ones of that kind, but there are other models out there. So hourglass gauntlets, mitten gauntlets, extended van braces, all that is cool. I definitely recommend going for elbow cops or something along those lines, or knee cops. Those are great.
And they're only about 60 bucks.
Exactly, they are really, really cheap. So breastplates and those kind of things and male shirts are what we're really expecting. Beyond that, you can cover most of it with just Blusfectin gear and you should be good. As for helmets, helmets will require certain modifications. So, for example, this one is not off of Cult of Athena or anywhere. This was made, but anything with an eye slit is gonna require perf plate. So you could get an open faced helm, for example, but you will have to put perf plate to cover your head. In this case also, this sallet opens so that its bever is attached. If it's a separate bever, I want perf plate connecting it to the helmet just so there's no gaps. I don't want any of that. As for kettle helmets, we did these modifications. We made just a separate visor that you can unscrew and set back in. And these will be around, we got 4 of them, so we'll make sure that everyone hopefully gets a chance to play with the helmet on because it is different. And real quick on that note, in regards to the one-on-ones, for playing with the axe, you should be more armored anyway. We might allow people like Randy to play with axe, but it'll be supervised, of course. But for playing with axe, if you're wearing one of the kettle helmets, it requires a chin strap. So these guys have built-in chin straps that affix underneath. Helmets that basically cannot be shaken off. So for example, this kettle helmet does not have a chin strap, so this would not be allowed for playing with the axe. This is just so it doesn't pop off your head too badly. Yep. Yes, so I also highly recommend that you guys invest in the padded hoist underneath. Yeah. So if you're gonna wear a helmet, I recommend that you go for one of these guys underneath. These have a suspension built in them. Most that you can get off of KOA, munitions grade armor, you'll have a suspension.
This was on Amazon, it was 15 bucks.
Exactly. This kind of stuff is super, super nice to have, and it makes you a lot safer. All right. So, my terribly long-winded ramble aside, that's the majority of the rules and the majority of the disallowed techniques taken care of. So just 2 more things that might come up there, 2 more roles that we might see, which are me as the marshal. I will be walking around, I'll probably be in historical clothing because why would I not be, but I will not be armored. And if you are marshalling or helping me marshal, you will not be in any armor whatsoever. Because if you're in armor, someone might see you and swing at you. So the marshal has the final say. The marshal is draconian when it comes to their authority. If they say you're out, you're out. If they say something's not allowed, it's not allowed. We're going to be rigorous on this because thus far, we've not had any problems. I want it to stay that way, especially in regards to the melee. The other role, I'm undecided as to whether or not this will happen, but those of you, and definitely in future I want this to happen, but to get more of our youth classes involved, I've come up with the role of the squire. So they will fetch and carry water, they'll take care of people and help armor everyone up, but on the battlefield, they can also, I don't want anyone younger than about, I'll probably put the cutoff at about 16, 17 with some discretion. But, so the younger guys, they can be on the field. We'll have them in protective gear, of course, but their role will be to carry spare weapons, to carry water with them, maybe even carry a standard.
Drag away corpses.
Drag away corpses. But the rules with them is that you're not allowed to strike a squire. If you can surround a squire, you can take the you can rob him, right? You can also take the squire hostage, you know, and they have to come rescue them. But you're not allowed to hit the squire. Squire's not allowed to hit you. It's just so they get to have a battlefield role. That may be a thing that we do later. I'll see if anyone in my youth class is kind of interested in that. But they'll definitely be around. Which reminds me of one more special rule. I don't know how it will play out. I hope we will have the opportunity to do this, but you don't have to kill your enemies. If you're surrounded, yielding to your opponents might be a really good idea. It's a thing that is done a lot historically, and you can totally take them hostage. You can demand, like, say, I capture you. I say, okay, I'm gonna let you go, but you gotta give me that spear. Okay, go on. I have disarmed him of a really important tool and helped my own team, but I didn't have to take his life. So I will go more into the lives and stuff in my actual write-up. This is just for visual reference. But otherwise, I think that's the majority of everything done. So hopefully I will see you guys down here, and don't worry, I will go over all this again in my written write-up, and day of will reiterate some of this, but it'll be fun, it'll be great. Buy armor and pole arms, and hopefully see you in May. All right, now I think you have to go hit stuff.